Last month, it was reported that King Charles III had decided against progressing with plans to slim down the monarchy, and would instead keep the number of working royals at 11. His Majesty's decision flies in the face of many critics and commentators who have speculated over the years that the monarch would streamline the list of royals who carry out official duties. For years reports were made that King Charles wanted a smaller royal family which would make his operation a leaner machine, with less to gossip about. Royal expert Giles Brander even previously told Express.co. UK, "I think that going forward we are going to go back to a much more slimmed-down monarchy." Like others, Mr. Brander predicted that Charles, his wife and consort Queen Camilla, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, Sophie, Countess of Wessex, the Prince and Princess of Wales would come to the fore in this new version of the monarchy. The Magnificent Seven was the moniker given to the team of royals touted to take the lead under Charles's reign. However, with the number remaining at 11, there are 4 more royals who will continue to carry out their public service: Prince Richard, Duke of Gloucester, Birgit, Duchess of Gloucester, Prince Edward, Duke of Kent, and Princess Alexandra. The Duke of Gloucester, Duke of Kent and Alexandra are all first cousins of the late Queen Elizabeth II. Richard is the second son of Prince Henry, Duke of Gloucester, while Edward and Alexandra are 2 of the children of Prince George, Duke of Kent. Both were younger brothers of King George VI. In comparison to the other working royals, the Queen's cousins tend to fly under the radar, with press coverage rarely focusing on their work and engagements. However, some experts have noted the importance of this older generation of royals, emphasizing their commitment to their service and the monarchy. Read more. Camilla and Judi Dench rushed to nudist beach after hearing about Queen Mother's old haunt. The Queen's cousins are the backbone of the royal family. Image, Getty Images. Richard, Birgit, Edward and Alexandra on the palace balcony in 2018. Image, Getty. Who is Rishi Richer then? New PM's wealth compared to King Charles and other top earners. In July this year, Rishi Sunak and his wife of 13 years Akshata Murthy, daughter of Indian billionaire Narayana Murthy, placed 222nd on the Sunday Times rich list. Their wealth places them far richer than a surprising number of celebrities and famous public figures, including the monarch, King Charles III. How rich is the UK's new Prime Minister? Find out here. Marlene Koenig, a historian who has spent over 40 years researching European royalty, described the Gloucesters as the backbone of the royal family, particularly noting the Duke's unexpected introduction to the life of a working royal. Richard was not destined to take on the title of Duke of Gloucester. It was instead meant to go to his older brother, Prince William. But in 1972, William died in an air crash while piloting his plane in a competition. That changed everything for Richard, Miss Koenig told Express.co.uk. He became the heir to the Duke of Gloucester and basically had to start to become a working royal. He was very much aware that he now had this huge responsibility. At the time of William's death, Richard was working as a private citizen at an architecture firm. He had trained at Cambridge University and was embarking on a career in the field. Just months earlier, he married the Danish-born Birgit van Dors Henriksen, who became the Duchess of Gloucester. From then on, his life was to serve the Queen, Miss Koenig explained, and he did it with Birgit, a Danish girl who was thrown right into it. They were fast-tracked into working life. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester got married in Image, Getty, Richard and Birgit during the Platinum Jubilee celebrations in June. Image, Getty. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester have since been dedicated to service, working with over 200 charities and organizations between them. The historian said Birgit has never put a foot wrong and she is absolutely loved, before adding, they have been the backbone of the royal family, particularly because he gave up his career to take on these responsibilities. She continued, "I also think we forget she was born in Denmark. She had been living quietly, attending university, and then all of a sudden she's carrying out official engagements. She was like a duck to water, but I am sure it was really difficult because it was not what she was expecting when she married Richard." Ms. Koenig referenced the iconic Platinum Jubilee scene when Queen Elizabeth was joined by the working royals on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. It was made apparent that the Gloucesters, the Duke of Kent and Princess Alexandra were the people who have been supportive, loyal and have done their job without seeking approbation. They have done it and they don't get enough credit. While the historian argued Edward and Alexandra garner more press attention than the Gloucesters, she admitted that they have similarly faded into the background. The working royals joined Queen Elizabeth on the palace balcony to mark her jubilee. Image, Getty. Trending Prince Edward has held the title of Duke of Kent for more than 80 years, since the age of 6, after the death of his father in a plane crash in 1942. He has performed official engagements on behalf of the Crown for over 5 decades and has been involved with over 140 organizations. Alexandra began carrying out royal duties in the late 50s, and was at one point one of the most active members of the firm, taking part in roughly 120 engagements each year. She has since taken a step back from public service but is still listed as a working royal and continues to attend numerous ceremonial and charitable engagements. Celia Lee, historian and co-author of HRH The Duke of Kent, A Life of Service, has spent decades researching Prince Edward and his life as a royal. She told Express.co.uk, he learned his role by his mother's side, going on his first official tour when he was 17. But it was some years before he actually took on a role himself. In 1955, the Duke of Kent graduated from the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst as a second lieutenant in the Royal Scots Greys, marking the beginning of a military career which lasted over 20 years. Don't miss, Harry snubbed William's offer of crisis talks over leak fears King Charles to host South Africa's Ramaphosa in first state visit. Thousands of messages sent to King Charles III after Queen's death. The Duke of Kent and Princess Alexandra are two of the Queen's first cousins. Image, Getty. Queen told artist not to put tiara on her sculpture to be the same as Philip. The Queen reportedly asked an artist not to add a tiara to a sculpture of her so that she would be the same as her husband, Prince Philip. Frances Siegelman had already made a bronze bust of the Duke of Edinburgh and asked the monarch if she would like a similar one. Read more here. Edward then became a full-time working royal, dedicating his life to serving the monarch. He became president of the British Overseas Trade Board. That was his first big assignment when he retired from the army, Ms. Lee explained. From that time, his role in the firm never altered. He was so senior that he was sent to negotiate with the Prime Minister, who in the 70s was Margaret Thatcher, at 10 Downing Street. He would take briefings from her on business and overseas trade, and then go and represent the UK. She added, now that really was quite a different role from anyone that came before him, to get involved in business and trade. He toured all over Britain, talking to the leaders of trade and industry, and overseas. Both Ms. Koenig and Ms. Lee noted the Duke's relationships with the late Queen Elizabeth II as one of their lasting impacts on the monarchy. Ms. Koenig said, it was their support of the Queen, their first cousin. In the Duke of Gloucester, you've got someone who was once in the working world, married and lived in a home of his own. Then all of a sudden, in an instant, he's living in Kensington Palace, carrying out royal duties and becoming patron of numerous organizations. I think that says a lot about him and his respect for the monarchy. The Duke of Gloucester stepped up to take on royal duties despite leading a successful career. Image, Getty. She continued, the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester are among the most assuming members of the royal family. They are the backbone, the unstuffy cousins, who supported the Queen for decades. Meanwhile, Ms. Lee said, Queen Elizabeth II never had a brother, but throughout her lifetime, the Duke of Kent fulfilled that role. The Queen relied on the Duke for a view of the world that was not easily accessible to her, being as she was a woman. He served in the army, including a brief spell in Northern Ireland, and he visited the Falkland Islands. It meant that over the years, the Queen had a reliable person to turn to for advice on these and such like matters. When Prince Philip died, the Duke of Kent was an arm to lean on. She added, he has viewed his role as supporting the Queen and doing what was necessary to support the monarchy. Following the death of Queen Elizabeth II, both argue the late monarch's cousins remain integral members of the royal family, and despite widespread speculation, they believe King Charles was never going to relinquish them of their duties. The Duke of Kent shared a close relationship with the late monarch. Image, Getty. Ms. Koenig said, they are the senior branch. They're the old guard. You're not going to cut off the old guard. Now isn't the end, they will be there and they will have no replacements. Why would anybody think that King Charles, was going to cut off his mother's cousins when it was made clear at the Jubilee they were part of this? They're older. This has been their job. They're actually grandchildren of a sovereign, George V. And they're doing their jobs. They're going to continue to do what they do. Cutting them off was never going to happen. Ms. Lee added, it was a retrograde step. We need royals and it is far from being too many. There's actually too few. She noted that while the number of royals has been diminishing, the number of charities has increased. The author explained, since the 60s, the number of charities has increased by an average of 2,500 per year. In 2010, there were 48 new general charities registered, and in 2012, it was 4200. In March 2020, there were over 168,000 charities operating in England and Wales. Those are the official figures. The Duke of Kent and Duke of Gloucester continue in their royal duties. Image, Getty. Now, the case against slimming down the monarchy, there has been, for years, a diminishing number of royals. So as the number of charities has increased, the number of working royals has decreased. And here lies the problem. She continued, after the deaths of the Queen and Prince Philip, hundreds of charities are without a patron, hundreds of them. And now that Charles has become king, he's actually said he would have to scale down his charity work because he has to take on official engagements that are undertaken by the sovereign. So this is a question that I pose: who is going to take over as patron and present all these hundreds of big important charities that the Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh and Charles were, or are patrons of? It is the burning question, and why royals like the Duke of Kent, Princess Alexandra and the Duke of Gloucester are so important.